and we're going to get going. Rinaldo, you are the head guy at SUPERTEXT, and I'm super excited to have you here. For people that don't know you, introduce yourself.
Oh, sure, I can do that. Yes, so I'm Rinaldo. Thanks for having me, Stefan. What to tell about me? So I've been a copywriter in advertising for a long time. So directly after high school, I did decide to not go to university and then start a career as a copywriter because writing was really my passion back then and the only thing I was really actually good at. So I was in advertising at the end of the Mad Men era. You probably all have seen the TV show where we all smoked and drank in the offices. So like the end of that era, I was just getting into the whole world of advertising. Started at a small company there and then made up the ladder as a copywriter and ended up working for Publicis and Leo Burnett and those bigger agencies. And then really the internet happened. Google came and changed the whole game a little bit. And so I was very interested in the internet. And in 2005, I started in Switzerland SUPERTEXT as a copywriting agency, basically an online platform where you could upload your own writing and then get it edited or rewritten by professional copywriters. So I was basically trying to replicate myself through this platform. This was basically really the first online copywriting editing service on the planet. So that's how we started as a startup. And then since Switzerland has 4 official languages, it was really only a question of time until the clients wanted that great, super cool writing also in other languages. And that's how I happened to come into the language translation business. I never really saw SUPERTEXT as a translation company. We really always try to stick to our roots and basically rewrite or write the content in the other language instead of just translating. So this progressed quite well. We opened office in Berlin in 2014, and in end of 2016, we decided it's time to conquer the States and go more international. So I moved to Los Angeles with Christy, and the two of us basically started over from scratch and built the branch here in Los Angeles. And that's I initially planned to be here only 2-3 years to ramp up stuff, but you know, it's California and I'm still here. I like it, and yeah, that's basically the story.
It's a very interesting story. The thing that's so aligned so well, and I don't want to get off on a tangent, but something I identify with is this, you know, it'll be for 2 or 3 years, and then before you know it, it's longer. For me, it's going on 30 now. So
all right.
But I definitely identify with the same thing. While we're at it, quickly, for people that haven't been in any of our Loc discussions, I quickly want to tell you that the format that we carry on is very, very informal. We like it when people ask questions and are part of the conversation. This is not meant to be just an interview of Rinaldo by me, but if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and jump right in. One of the challenges I always have is seeing when people want to join in and talk. So please don't be super polite and wait with your hand raised for 5 minutes before you join in, because chances are I'm not going to see you because I'm concentrating on 7 other things at the same time. So feel free to join in at any time if you have a follow-up question or a comment to make. That's the way we like it. The reason, or one of the angles that I saw with the topic today right away is obviously the fact that Rinaldo, as he already explained, has a business that originally is rooted in copywriting. And while I was talking to him at LocWorld, I was kind of pulsing him on my thought process that as we are bringing in things like AI and neural machine translation in the localization world, there's a good chance that at some point we won't even be dealing with source text and target text anymore, but we'll be creating content directly in a bunch of languages. And I was kind of pulsing Rinaldo on what the opportunities are when it comes to that, in his opinion. And I was really interested in his responses, and I hope he's going to give you some of the same answers that he gave me during the initial talk, because that's what really got me captivated. So given these new developments, AI in particular, Rinaldo, what do you think should be the way LSPs adapt their business models to integrate AI maybe, and to maybe do content creation more elaborately? What's your take on it?
Yeah, so I think it's really a question of what you want to do and where you want to be at. So I think the vast majority of LSPs probably already have kind of like adopted AI or MT in some form, at least if you count machine translation as kind of like an AI. So I think that has been a continuous, gradually ramp up of machine translation power that has been adopted by LSPs all over. And even if you don't know, probably most translators in your network working for you already have adopted MT more than you thought. So like, I think MT AI is already a reality and has been adopted in the business. I think now with AI coming in, I see it as a evolution, of MT. It's not completely changing the game. I think when it comes to creating content from scratch, there's a new helper and an assistant that you can use. I think it comes down to where you want to be in the food chain. So let's say you have company A and they want to do a Christmas campaign. The question is really, with your company, where you want to be. Are you the company that helps, coming up with an idea and creating the Christmas campaign or that holiday card? Are you writing it? Or do you want to be the LSP at the end that's just before it's going to get printed, translates the whole card? So I think that the strategic question is really, as a company or from a business model perspective, where you want to be. And this doesn't have a lot to do with AI or not, but it's really a question of where do you place, where do you come in the cycle of such a campaign. I think we as SUPERTEXT, we always wanted to be as up as possible, so like when the company is planning that campaign, that you can be a strategic partner and talk about like, okay, these are, or even come up with the idea and support the marketing department in coming up with an idea for that campaign, writing that campaign, adapt it for the different markets. And I never really wanted to be an LSP that is on a printing level, like where you basically take all the ideas that already have been made, the content has been created, and now you're in task of just translating or adapting it. I think with AI coming in, that's going to have an implication for everyone in this chain. You can use it to optimize your workflows, speed up stuff, but at the end, I think it's a question of like, is this an opportunity to move up, to bring localization up into the level of being a strategic partner and not just a supplier like a printer is.
And you seem to be really well positioned, because that's kind of the angle that you've taken from the get-go. You actually came to localization through content creation, not the other way around.
Yes, exactly. So I think a year ago already in Dublin, I gave a speech about that. And I think, personally that the future of the translator is really to be a copywriter. So how I see it is like that, translators, the standard translator you get is a person that is mostly interested in the foreign culture. So like if I am a Chinese English translator in England or in America, I'm interested in the Chinese culture. I spend 90% of my time learning about the culture, that language. That's my focus. That's my mindset. And a copywriter really doesn't have that. So like that's really a person that is focused on his own language, on his own market. But both people produce at the end, the result is an English copy. So like if you go to a translator who spends like most of the time learning about like the source language, that's a different type of person than a copywriter who is probably monolingual and spends 100% of its time to create really good English copy. So I think if you work with people who are coming more from the copywriting side, you probably have a higher quality or a better copy than when you are working with a normal regular translator. Even if you ask a lot of translators, a lot of them don't even like writing. If you give them a blank piece of paper and then come up with a good copy, it would never be as good as if you go to a native copywriter. And I think that has been a little bit the take at SUPERTEXT, that we see the content has to be, given the attention by someone who is really into that market and into the writing. I think there's a lot of there's one basic difference. And now with AI coming in and MT that has been deployed everywhere, I think it's more and more an editing task or a writing task that you have to do as a person in the language business. And I'm not sure if your average translator is really best suited to do that. Most of them are not really good writers or editors. So the question is also not only, is this a shift in technology, but also a shift in skills and maybe even a change of teams.
And do you think there's an opportunity for translators to reschool and to adapt their knowledge and qualities?
Yeah, I think, like a lot of translators should probably start reading books about good writing or like good copywriting, or like become or develop a mindset of like, people don't care if this has been originally another language copy. It's all about like what they read. If people read a copy, they don't ask themselves, has this been translated or not? They just read that and they want the best possible copy. And you want to produce something that is great. And wherever it comes from, is it originally originated by AI, or has it been written by someone in another language? What you want is reading a good copy, and therefore you need people who can do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Hi. So like I said, I'm so excited about this because I started out at Cal as a cross-cultural communicator and lived all over the world, multilingual, but and an educator. So what excited about with your comments, Stefan, is that I actually took a break from the Monterey Institute in localization. It was all MT coding and okay, but COVID happened and whatever. But what I'm thinking is that I'm really hoping, and maybe you can add to this, how are some of the educational higher education programs going to incorporate more of the writing and the culture and things like that? Because when I teach more on the cultural level, and then learn the language in the meantime. But yeah, I'm like, as far as universities go, like, I'm kind of glad I waited for the last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I can say, like when we started with SUPERTEXT in 2005, and then got this first request from clients to produce the copy in a different language, my initial thought was not going to a translator, but just send what we have to Google Translate, and then take that Google Translate output and give it to a writer to edit. So there was, I didn't wanted to like really work with translators. I just wanted to, but Google Translate back then was so bad. So people, the writers wouldn't even understand, what this means. But I think now the technology has developed so much that a workflow like that could actually work and produce maybe even better results. We did some tests here, and this was a blog post, a bunch of blog posts for like 1,500 words, and we sent it through a regular transcreation process, where you have like two linguists translating and transcreating it. We had a workflow where we sent it through MT and then post-edit it. And we had another workflow where we tried to replicate the content with AI. So like the same messaging, but basically come up from scratch with AI with a similar content, and then edit that and look at the costs. What these workflows would cost. So obviously the MTPE was the least expensive, and then the AI PE was a little bit more. And of course the linguistics two people TEP process was by far the most expensive. And interesting, the clients mostly liked the AI PE the best.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Because the content was clearly not the same as the original. So it was, thanks to being originated by AI and prompted like for the same topic, it already was kind of like localized.
Yeah.
And then it was, it doesn't, I don't think it works for every kind of content. There is content that needs to be as accurate as possible. And there, I think the MTPE is better, and faster, quicker. But for any like creative content, or can be more, go away from the original, then the AI PE model is really the way to go. And in that process, you actually don't need any translator. You need a good editor, a good writer that knows how to prompt. I think that the big question with AI anyway is like, and what I really like about it is how it shifts the conversation to what you actually want. If you are in the writing, creating business, the problem with clients is always that they don't know what they actually want. So like they tell you in the briefing for an hour, oh, I want it to be very personal. It should sound like serious, but fun and creative also. Like, and over an hour, you have like, it goes up. It could be anything. And then you as a writer have to develop a feel like, okay, I go for this. You write it in that style, and the clients then knows what they don't want. And then you have to edit and edit and edit. But with AI, it's kind of like, if you want to make use of it, you really need to know what you want the outlook to be. And the better you know, the better the result will be. So this shifts the whole conversation to a better briefing. That's what we anyway would need.
It prompts you to have a better discovery with your prospective customer and lay the groundwork for a better result. I'm really interested that I know we have some people from the buyer side in the group here. Erica, are you around? I would love your take on things, and in particular, because we've talked about translators, I would want to know whether people on the buyer side of things, whether they see an opportunity for LSPs to get involved in the creative, and whether they would be open to having a conversation that is more upstream. We've always aimed for that in localization, to be honest, right? We've always wanted to be higher upstream. When we're just sticking to the translation localization business, often we're kind of squeezed out of any discussions further upstream because we're not part of the creative process.
Right. But I think this is the issue is people don't, especially, young companies, they have no idea what they need. So I think you have to come, that's what you have to present to the client and let them know, this could work for you. This could be a great idea. I would come to them with the ideas because I think, especially now, my clients have been small SaaS companies for the last couple of years, and they have they don't, they're just they got invested and they have money and they have, they're just looking for customers. They're looking for opportunities. So I think LSPs have an enormous opportunity to go to meet with companies and present their ideas for them. I don't know how everyone feels about that, but I think you have to be more creative on the vendor side.
Yeah. It's an interesting question for you, Rinaldo, because again, I think your perspective is unique in the sense that so often when we talk to LSP representatives here, they're in a company that is really focused on localization and translation services, and you actually come from content writing and writing services. And so maybe the question that Erica is alluding to, presenting to customers in a more creative way, is something that you have a lot of experience with because your clientele is higher upstream. Am I correct in making that assessment? And what can you tell us about how to present yourself in a way that you get a chance to be higher upstream?
It really depends on the clients, I think. Some and who are you talking to on the client side? Like the higher up they are and involved if they are involved in the creative process and making the strategies, the better the chance that you can present ideas. For us, it was back in the day, it was a lot of like what was it called? Website relaunches. That happened a lot. Like every 2-3 years, the company comes and then want to relaunch the website. And they came to us to rewrite their website. And then when we did that, they needed to have the rewritten stuff in the other languages too. And often they had an LSP already, or they had an internal translation department or whatever, or a setup, but they believed, since we were the ones that have been rewriting all of that we could also do this for the other languages. And so that's how we grew more and more into the translation language business. And then after the website relaunch, they had like other stuff they needed to be translated, and that could have been manuals, stuff that needs to be very accurate. And they had a good experience with us, developed a personal relationship, and then we also got these kind of orders too. So the classic normal translation business we grew also, but the trigger to get into the business has always been they came to us because they wanted ideas or like create something from scratch, be it a renaming or like, you know, writing something. I think it depends a lot of like how you position yourself as an LSP or as a service provider. We always try to have like a well-written website, or, you know, our marketing and outreach is to prove that we are good writers or people that have ideas, and creating that image and creating that you know, perspective that could come to us if they need good writing. Yeah, so it's difficult to say, but I think it really depends on the clients. If you go in with solutions and technical stuff, then you probably always will end up being more the production machine when the content that always has been created.
It's interesting that you should segue into that, because that was going to be one of my next questions. You know, what role do strategic partnerships play in enabling LSPs to offer these new kinds of services?
Yeah, the question is, what is really the new kind of service?
Yeah.
I mean, it's still language A into language B. That's one kind of like business, right? That's one business you can address. The other business is like, hey, are we in the business of like helping someone conquer a new market, and then they need like a campaign or ideas, or, you know, set something up there. In general, I think there's a lot of like AI startups. I think at LocWorld, Stefan, we have seen a lot of like AI. Every other word was AI there. A lot of companies providing these solutions, also smaller tech companies. And I think LSPs are basically in a good situation here, because they have the relationships with the clients, and the tech companies, especially the younger startups, they don't have. And they probably underestimated what it takes in sales and in building these relationships with the clients. So I think there's a great opportunity to partner up with tech clients, because they are looking for, you know, for sales too, but they don't have the deep relationships many LSPs have. So they need the LSPs to get to the opportunities to roll out their tech solutions. So I think it's for LSPs, I think the biggest asset is really the relationship they have with the clients, and then they can bring in tech solutions and roll it out. I think at LocWorld we have seen that the tech companies, they talk to the clients more and more directly, of course, but it takes time and a lot of investment to really build the relationships and get to a point where they don't need an LSP anymore. I don't think the LSP business is going away. I think the partnerships is very important, and is to the advantage of both sides.
We have an AI tech superstar in the group here, although he's turning off his camera right now. But I would have loved to hear his take on what you just said. Eric, are you listening? I would love your perspective on what Rinaldo just said.
Well, I mean, you've got me thinking about a lot of different things, but I think what one thing I really like about what you said is it shifts the balance of power and the stack of value that's created. And you have folks who will be more empowered and people who will be less empowered. And the person who is accountable for delivering a certain message to a particular market needs information about that market, needs it partly is a translator task, but there's also other flows of information that can be synthesized more quickly and more effectively to kind of to put the right information in the person's head who's going to be creating that final copy. Whether you call it a translation or whether you call it a copy may be a fairly blurry line. The translation might be fundamentally translation is trying to be true to the source, which has a role. There's certain things that do need to be true to that source. And then there's certain things that we adjust when we make a translation, or we made a transcreation or make some other kind of transformation of this content for a particular target audience. So I think the way that tools can help out with that, interestingly, I mean, I think about it in two different branches. One is kind of how can you automate efficiently large volumes of tasks for the purpose of efficiency. But then you also have how can you make the mind, the pure creator of value, how can you make their mind more valuable? And Rinaldo, I think you're mainly emphasizing that part of it. There's the aspect of how do you empower the human in the loop with the best available approach. The technologists, I think, tend to think more in terms of how do we remove the human from the loop? Not like how can we make this instantaneous and credible without a human involved at all? So both of these are different use cases. They're distinctly different use cases that AI affects both, right? And when you think about pure raw MT, many of the uses are an alternative to not translated at all versus translated beautifully. And then the human side, if you're going to create that human content, the human-based content, you can do so far more efficiently. So think about how fast you can get it done and how cheaply. But I think what's more interesting is when I'm thinking about that empowerment is better, like better context, better understanding, better synthesis of all the available information. I mean, this kind of fits too with an idea about the challenges with contexts in our industry. And a translator very often is put in a position of having to translate something about which they are not an expert. But we now have the ability to rapidly acquire sort of a cursory expertise in something for the purpose of making better decisions. And it still takes a human to know what good looks like. It still takes a human to really say, this is appropriate if you care about a human's input, in which case all that information flow or all that power that you're giving to that thinker, that communicator, that writer, or whatever you want to call that synthesis of what that mind is contributing versus, again, the synthesis of output that you're asking technology to do. So I think
I couldn't agree. Yes,
yeah.
I couldn't agree more to this, really, because I think, there is one thing to come up with stuff, and then there's the second thing to evaluate and decide. So, like, for example, if you're a company and you're looking for a new slogan or a product name, it's the really difficult things is not to come up with 100 different names. The really difficult thing is like to decide on one. So like you can use AI and then come up with a list of 100 product names. Or in the past, you had like 5 people, wrapping their brains around and come up with 100 names. But the really difficult task is then like, okay, which one are we going for? Which one is the best one? What makes the most sense? What is like, with which one do we have the edge? And I think that's not going away with any kind of like technology for a long time.
Yeah,
also interesting.
You nailed it. Yeah, you nailed
it.
So you can use AI to get more ideas or to make better permutations of things that I think our brains get kind of we channel ourselves like naturally. We try to think of a few things and we kind of get bottlenecked ourselves. So AI can be used to widen the berth of options and to synthesize those options better. But I think you're exactly right. It still takes the wisdom and the understanding of purpose that AI has no idea about. There's no way that AI understands purpose. All it can do
And the
is,
gut feeling.
yeah,
The
it's
gut
like,
feeling.
is this the right answer or not? Like, that's still
Yeah.
needs to be human decision. Yeah.
Also very interesting, I think, um, um, if you, I think the best possible way, to go into another market has always been, I think everyone agrees on here, is like if you had someone to completely, write everything in the other language. The why it's not done, because it's too expensive and takes too much time. Like if you have 100 blog posts and you need to go into Germany now and you need to have these 100 blog posts in German, the best way would be to find a really good writer that fits, that knows the market, and then come up and writes these 100 blog posts. It's too expensive, it takes too long. So we're translating it. We take what we already have and then translate it with the help of MT and all of that. I think now with AI, it's really the process of creating new content is coming to the same time, and kind of like, or is moving in that direction to have to cost as less and be as quick as translating as we know it. And I think that's really the interesting part, or an opportunity for business. So like the ideal, so in my opinion, in an ideal world, you would always have been writing it from scratch in the other language, and to be really localized and not translating. Translating itself is not something that's, like it's a middle solution.
See, what I find so particularly fascinating about this discussion is that some of the things that would make it impractical to provide the solution the way you're describing it, Rinaldo, I think with the technology that is being uncovered in the last year, all of a sudden becomes a lot more feasible. And that's why I find it fascinating to have somebody like Eric here, who's a solutions architect, so to speak, and to have him listen to you. And he would be the kind of guy that could come up with something, I'm thinking, that could facilitate our businesses in a way that we would have a lot easier time selling the solutions that you're thinking of. Because if indeed the silver bullet is to be able to present a customer with a text from scratch in the target language, and you want to give that customer a variety of choices. In the past, maybe that wouldn't have been very practical, and it would have cost too much. But now, all of a sudden, with the help of AI, I think that we have a lot better chance to give the customer the 10 different choices, and maybe come up with a technical platform, Eric, that helps the customer be part of that process real time and choose what direction they want to go forward, and maybe the 5 they want to eliminate, and the 3 they want to continue with, or of their preference. Am I hallucinating about that, or do you think that there's new possibilities there? What do you think?
Well, I'll say it's nice to remind ourselves that ChatGPT isn't the only thing that hallucinates. We humans do it all the time, come up with crazy ideas. But that is not a crazy idea. But I wanted to tell a story. Once in one of my prior roles, we were experimenting with a performance of copy that we were trying to see how many views and shares we could get from a particular approach. So we tried translation and we tried transcreation, and this was sort of an English into East Asian languages. And we found, not surprisingly, that if you measure the productivity of the effort in terms of cost per view or cost per share, which is probably even more valuable metric, that transcreation ended up being a more cost-effective approach than translation, because translation doesn't really and think about this also from the, I think about this, for example, this 10 ways you're doing coffee wrong. You know, can think of a blog post trying to generate traffic with that. And just sure, you got a lot of opinions, you want to generate, you know, whatever. But you can take that to another culture in which finding fault is not the preferred way of engagement, but rather optimizing or creating a higher level of harmony or better, well-meaning relationships or better trust or establishing better credibility in your particular market. So instead, you would shift that over to here's 10 ways you can make coffee even better, or here's 10 ways you can delight your clients or your visitors, your guests with the best possible coffee. That fundamental shift from sort of negativity to positivity is exactly the kind of thing that AI can help facilitate, or even to do better market research into that target market and say, what are the trends here on positivity versus negativity in terms of generating traffic or generating interest. So the two lessons there are, one is look at the value that you're creating in that effort. Like what is the effort you're trying to do, and how can you deliver the optimized value for what you're looking for. And the flip side is translation is a trap, and the segmentation is a trap as well, that isn't appropriate for all uses, especially for marketing, but I think for other use cases as well. And AI gives us this opportunity to bring these other capabilities to the table. So to Stefan's point, I mean, I went a long journey there to get back to the can technology help us with this? And I think the answer is absolutely yes. And there's so many tools available that are like rapidly being deployed right now. The challenge, I think, isn't often not that the technology is there, but to quantify how valuable it is. How much should you pay for it? Because it's, in some case, you're always paying for it one way or the other. You're either paying for it with sharing your content, or you're paying for it like subscription, or you're paying, pay per volume. Like there's a bunch of different ways you can pay for it. But the reality is it's hard to know, how do you quantify what good looks like, and how do you quantify what it's worth to you and to deploy any of these capabilities? And I think that's the real question. The mastery now is not which tool, is not that a tool could provide value, but what value are you needing? How do you quantify the value that you're looking for? And how do you decide how much you're going to invest in it? And when I say invest, I mean not just the cost of using the service. There's also an investment from practitioners to learn it, to trust it, to understand it, to optimize it. There's a bunch of pieces there that are part of deploying this technology, especially since it's so hard to sort of, I mean, Gen AI is really weird. It's hard to sort of control. It's hard to know what it's going to do, what it's going to come up with. Another reason why I think it's cool to use it as an idea factory or as an input for a decision maker, rather than kind of as a flat kind of predictable output. It's just too unpredictable in terms of its output. But anyway, I covered a bunch of different topics there. You gave me a chance to talk, and I ran with it. Hopefully I added some thoughtful hallucinations of my own.
It's fascinating, but it begs the question, will there in the end be a lot of LSPs left that are not venturing into tech relationships and broadening their nets, so to speak, with tech solutions? Michael, VistaTech is certainly venturing that way as well, and you've been very vocal in the chat. Maybe you want to share your perspective on this.
Fascinating.
I hope he hasn't left. Has he?
I can't hear you, Michael.
I think he's muted. Yeah.
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Now we can.
Perfect. No, I love what Eric said. That's why I was getting overly excited. And Stefan, you said some great things. And then Rinaldo as well, like just brilliant statements, because this is the challenge that folks like myself beat my head against the wall every day, trying to talk to executive level folks, but also obviously local leads and other folks to get executive ear, right? To get them to understand what they can do to provide value in this arena. And so one of the things that Vistatech and I think others in the environment out there that are doing is that, you know, doing these things with like overlapping KPIs that are actually going to be the things that are really important to, like you mentioned, the marketing folks. You know, if you've got executive marketing groups within larger enterprise organizations, they have to kind of know what the opportunity cost for not doing certain things is. As you mentioned, Stefan, you're providing them options, right? So that they then can choose the best option for their current situation within their own organization. But some of what I'm noticing is that people are not bold enough or emboldened enough to comfortably make statements about what's kind of going on out there. And so because of this, it's kind of causing paralysis, you know, out there in the marketplace amongst the buyer's side. Now, the LSP side, there's all these different conversations about the tech tools that are going to solve everybody's problems versus the LSPs that have like the pedigree and the you know, decades of experience, you know, going through economic turmoil at every stage, right? And so for the first time, our industry is being shaken. And from my perspective, this is the first time. But like as I posted today on social media, there was a Forbes article on AI and creative content creation, and it was basically, which to me, localization falls in the same category because now everything's a hybrid model. So you're doing content creation, geolocal content creation for certain clientele. And as Eric mentioned, you might have we have plenty of clients where we're able to very clearly show like transcreation as an option is producing way more ROI. So the investment is way worth it, right? But then it's just getting the right people to understand this, that it can't just be thrown over the fence. You know, where a lot of the marketing folks, as an example, they don't care about how the sausage is made. You know, they just care that they receive the sausage. So, so to speak. So hopefully I'm making yeah.
So Rinaldo, is the paralysis that Michael was alluding to, is that because of some of the ethical considerations you think that are involved with the implementation of AI nowadays, or how do you see that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we just had the writer strike here in LA, and I think AI was a big part of that too. And I think that's exactly going into that topic. So like the threat that AI poses to writers, and where do we find solutions here? Yeah, of course there are ethical questions, and you know, industry change is hard, but I think it's gonna happen. There's no way around it.
Yeah. John, we haven't heard you this afternoon, and you're on the buyer side as well. So I'd love your input and your perspective on things, if you would be so kind.
I'll be honest, I don't have a ton of input on the AI, the tool side of things.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm talking to clients, or when we're talking about localizing for a different market, they're not asking me how it's going to be done necessarily. They just want to know it's being done right and it aligns with their voice. My issue lately, honestly, is less to do with if we're doing the content correctly, more to do. I jump on calls between, like, let's say a salesperson in Japan, but HQ is the marketing lead. They are not aligned. And so I think that's where like my value has shifted a bit over the last couple of years, to be more with facilitating kind of communication between, and then figuring out a way to make it work. So marketing wants to do a campaign in Japan about this new product. Sales is saying, well, we can't sell that product. In the end, marketing is the HQ is going to win. So that's where I'm kind of jumping in with the balance of like, all right, well, how do we make this work for both parties to be happy? So, but yeah, in terms of like copy, I don't I mean, it's what's interesting for me is like how, whether I call it translation, localization, transcreation, whatnot, my clients are just going along on that ride with me. They don't, most of them don't care what I call it. Just to be clear, right? And so, and sometimes I'm confused as to, well, what am I doing? What are we providing? And that's partially because I don't work at an LSP, like a traditional LSP. It's more of a marketing and design. And localization is a part of what we offer. But, you know, leading up to that, we also provide the research, the persona, the validating hypothesis, and brand guideline creation, honestly, for a new market. So localization is weaved into every aspect of that, I would say. So I don't know. Took it a little differently.
Are you seeing where you live, and then this is kind of a question to everybody, are you seeing more and more ads that are in other languages in your domestic market, meaning on TV programming or billboards? I can only say this in Chicago, like I'm seeing this everywhere now. I'm seeing healthcare providers with Polish localized signage, you know, for the Polish population in Chicago, right? I'm seeing this in commercials where I'm watching television and suddenly McDonald's comes up and it's showing the app, but it's in simplified Chinese. Or in other cases, I've seen Toyota do commercials where they're doing English speaking Japanese folk, but with Japanese subtitles. You know, so I'm seeing all kinds of crazy things, and I don't know if it's, you know, where I'm overly hypersensitive or if these brands are getting more of a understanding based off of the demographics that there's all of this potential for growth opportunity right in their domestic market.
I think I understand what you mean. By the way, hi, I'm Karol from Poland. I think I know what you mean. As I was walking in the streets here in Warsaw, many times over the past year, I've seen more and more advertisements in English and I think Ukrainian, Chinese, German. Pretty much the center of Warsaw became one big. I forgot the word to describe this, but
like a multinational pool of
there are many languages overlapping in many different buildings. I mean, you can see 3 different languages on one building in one street, the other street, 3 other languages, and yes, it's becoming more and more visible in everyday life. For social media, the same content from different languages becomes more and more visible. So
I still see quite a bit of, or I see a lot of Spanish here in Texas, but I'm not sure that I see a lot of billboards in a lot of other languages. How are things in Southern California, Rinaldo? You see more than just Spanish?
I would love to see more, actually. I think, but I mean, here it's in LA. It's mostly Spanish and English. Everything. Also, my kids in school, everything is like dual language. The information you get, I think those are the 2 main ones. But I think if you go into K-Town, you see Korean billboards, of course. I think when I came here, I did some research and find out that in LA County, there is more than 50% of people in the county speak another language than English at home. So there is a ton of opportunity there. I also, you know, coming from Switzerland, I see I was used to having 4 or at least 3 languages on every product. You know, if you go in Switzerland and buy a bottle of milk, it's in 3 languages. And then if you are in the German part, then it's Milch. is the big one, and then the other two languages are smaller. If you go to the French part, it's le, and then the other two languages are smaller. And when I came to the US, I was just stunned how beautiful all the packaging looked like, because there is only one language. And I was, oh, it's not so packed. But actually, I think there's a ton of potential here for like addressing all this multilingualism more. But I feel like if I go to school here and talk to other parents, you hear a ton of different languages. So I think it's natural. Maybe I would love to see more of that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of diversity here in Texas, just the same. There's an incredible amount of diversity in the neighborhood that I live here alone. But there's not a lot of language specificity in other languages than English or Spanish. I typically don't see it in the street. It's funny, when I go on vacation to my parents in Switzerland and I come back, YouTube has pegged me during that time as a German speaker invariably, although I go to the French part of Switzerland. So there's something in the settings there that's not 100% working. Maybe it's because I fly out of Zurich when I come back. When I land back in the States, invariably I end up getting commercials in German for a while. In any case, this gets us to the top of the hour already, believe it or not, Rinaldo. That's how fast it went by. I thought it was a fascinating discussion and really, really valuable stuff that we talked about this afternoon. I can't thank you enough for being our guest, and hopefully you'll join us again in the near future when we bring in other people and you come be part of the conversation again. It was an honor to have you here. And I'm going to close shop and wish everybody a wonderful afternoon and a great weekend. Thank you so much for joining us at LocDiscussion, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Stefan.
Everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
you're welcome.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye.
Stefan. Cheers.
Bye.